was absent. So again, this schedule is going to be what we are following this week. On Monday, you would go right back to normal schedule the week before spring break. Okay. So your homework, you are going to, first of all, you're going to be submitting your digital notebooks. I will put a link for that at the end of school today. So if your digital notebooks for the genetics section is ready to go, you can go ahead and submit that. Again, remember, you have some student examples embedded in this slide in case you want some more direction. So I will post a link for your digital notebooks that is due on Wednesday. On Thursday, you are going to see an assignment released of a video on natural selection and then some questions to answer based on that video. Questions on any of this? No, you're fine, Derek. Okay. Now, with this unit, we are not going to have a final exam for natural selection. This is our final unit before you guys take the state exam. And so what we're going to jump into right at the end of this unit, because it's pretty short, we have all the holidays and whatnot. There's some activities you're going to do, and then we're going to jump right into the CAST, or California Science Test Review. For the actual state exam, you guys are going to be tested on 6th, 7th, and 8th grade material. So after we finish natural selection, we're going to get into review for that. Okay? Questions on any of this? All right. Today, like I mentioned, we are going to be using a lot of different platforms. So make sure you are on task, make sure you're focused, get rid of any distractions. I do expect your camera to be on unless you're having technical issues. There will be a lot of opportunity for you to participate in class discussion. So take advantage of that. Okay. All right. Questions for me? So here's the deal. On the Pear Deck, I'm grading the Pear Deck for your 10 points for the day. So make sure you are registered on the Pear Deck, which I should have 28 of you, and I only have 26 of you. So make sure you join the Pear Deck. Thank you, Angelica. She's putting the code for you. So 2 more of you need to add on to the Pear Deck. This will be your 10 points for the day. Okay, so make sure you keep up with us. All right, so I'm just curious. I'm not going to share this information with anybody. This is just for me. On the Pear Deck, what did you and your parents or guardians decide? Are you staying home or enrolling in the hybrid schooling? Okay. While you're doing that, I'm going to take attendance, and I'm hoping the 2 of you that aren't on there yet, go ahead and join Pear Deck, please. I need to call period 3. Your choice is due by 6 p.m. tonight. Your parents got an email for a electronic submission, so make sure you check that. Now, if you know you're staying home and you don't turn in your selection, that's okay, because anybody who doesn't turn in their selection is automatically enrolled in staying home, the virtual learning. Okay. All right. I now have 28 of you on my roster. Thank you for doing that. I'm missing 5 of you on this warm up though. So Rihan, Donovan, Marcus, Armand, Derek. Let's see. Okay. Wow. All right. We have a mixture. Okay. it looks like it's almost 50-50 almost. Whatever you and your family choose, I respect that choice. Every family is unique. They have their own challenges. So make sure though that if you are one that wants to be in person, that you definitely submit your choice by 6 p.m. tonight. Otherwise, it's locked. You can't add in. You didn't get an email. So if you didn't get an email, I highly suggest that you call the front office. Not right now, but maybe in between third and fifth or right after fifth period, call the front office and they will have more guidance on that because they're the ones that send it out. Okay. All right. Today we're going to jump right into a little activity. I am going to send you out to breakout rooms. You're not going to be there very long. In fact, I have it set for 20 minutes. I think I'm going to push you to get it done in 18 minutes. I'm going to take away some more time because we could use that for our break. Okay. Ooh, I should go 17 minutes. Then you got a 3-minute break. First period didn't get their second break, so I'm thinking that'll actually do it. Okay, so we have a formative. You probably already saw it on Google Classroom, but you even have a link right here on your slide that you can access. This is about natural selection. Work as a team. I'm going to change this. Let's go 17 minutes. I think you guys can do it. It's a pretty fun activity. You have a link right here too to the PhET simulation. And the PhET simulation is going to, let me reset, have you see what happens with these bunnies. So we're going to click on certain things. The directions will help you. And then we're going to let these bunnies populate. And then we're going to introduce different things like wolves or limited food, and then see what happens to our little bunnies here. Okay, so there's only 7 questions. They're not in-depth questions. Again, I just want you to get some exposure to an organism living in a different environment. Okay, so let me open up these breakout rooms. And then what we're going to do is when we come back, we'll take our first break. And then our discussion today, our lesson today is really based on this activity here. So we have 28. I'll go ahead and open up 9 rooms. It's randomly assigned. Where did it go? Uh-oh, my bunny's too. Let me make sure I exchange. Scan real quick. Oh, let's go intro. Click on intro for the PhET simulation. All right. Have fun. Let's do 17 minutes and then come back to the main room. So what is that? 17 minutes. Let me pause this. Pause. Thank you for letting me know you're back. Thank you. Thank you, Angelica. Thank you, Drew. Hopefully you're able to see a good example of natural selection here. So, Armand, is that working? Did he get in? Hopefully he joins us. So now we're back on the Pear Deck. What color bunny was the majority in the desert and in the snow? So it's a 2-part question here. Okay. All right, we're back on the Pear Deck. Oh, there you are. And I'm missing half of you. So again, come back to the Pear Deck. We're done with the formative. I'm using that formative as far as your participation. So if you are on task, you're good. If you're off task, that's not good. Thank you, Angelica. I have 28 people enrolled though, we're good. So now I need Derek, Fateh, Donovan, Armand, Bailey, Robert, Angel, and Faith. Please join us on Pear Deck. I'm not gonna wait for 100% of you to answer the question. I will give you a warning and then we're gonna move on. Remember, this Pear Deck is gonna be your 10 points for the day. So make sure we stay on task, okay? So Derek, make sure you get on there too. So two-part question. We have the desert and the snow. Volunteers, and I'm gonna spread the wealth. I'm not gonna call on everybody because we're all gonna say the same thing, but I will call on probably 2 to 4 students and then I will write it up. When you volunteer, give me only one scenario. So which one in the desert, or tell me which one in the snow. All right, let's start with Samuel.
In the desert, there are more majority of brown bunnies than white bunnies.
Okay, Sahil.
In the snow, there's more white bunnies than brown bunnies because they
Okay,
camouflage.
Armand.
I agree. In the desert, there's more brown.
Okay, so Alyssa, can you tell me the why? Why was there more brown in the desert and then more white in the snow?
Because for the brown bunnies, they were more likely to camouflage in the desert, and then in the snow, the white bunnies are more likely to camouflage in the snow.
All right, so right when you clicked on wolves and you saw them just like run through, all these bunnies disappeared. Oh man, but the ones that stayed, you notice, were similar colored to their environment. They were able to hide a little bit better. Derek, are you with us? We're on the Pear Deck, so make sure you're answering that question. Okay, so I'm gonna give you, I'll go student here. There we go. Now this applies, right? Bunnies were just one example we saw, but we can see this same scenario apply to almost anything, right? If you can hide in your environment, you're not going to be found, and that's a good thing or a bad thing sometimes. But generally, if you're an animal or an insect or something and you want to hide from something that's going to eat you, that's going to be beneficial. So what if it was like bugs? Pretend these things are bugs. We have a green bug, a black bug, and a white bug. Go ahead and move your little dot. Which is more likely to survive? So we're on Pear Deck still. We don't need to toggle anywhere. You can just stay with me on Pear Deck this whole time. We're not going to go back and forth. Okay. So what do you think? Drag your little dot. And I need 3 more of you. Rihan, Donovan, Hope. Which bug, these things are bugs, which bug would most likely survive in this environment? All right, 100% of you chose the green one. Again, it's more camouflage, is able to hide, predators less likely to find it. Now, what about this question? Let's take it a step further. The green ones are more likely to survive. So then what color are most of the offspring likely to be? Again, drag your dot to where you think it's going to go. And I guess I can show you on the video. Oh, we have some misspelling. I'll fix it, Anne. Thank you. All right. I'm missing 4 of you. Stay with us on Pear Deck. You shouldn't be on anything else. You should be answering Pear Deck questions now, unless it's note time, and you'll know it's note time with that little pencil. So Donovan and Faith. All right, volunteers. What color is most of the offspring? So what's the next generation most likely going to look like? And when you talk to me, tell me the part of your why. Matthew, what do you think?
I think most of the offspring will be green because they'll be the ones that survive over the black and white ones. So most of them will be green.
Okay, Armand?
I agree that the green ones will most likely be the offspring because they have a higher chance of survival because of how they can camouflage with the grass.
All right. So if we only have, and you saw this in your bunny simulation, right? If you're in the snow and the white bunnies survive, then the white bunnies are going to reproduce, and then we're going to have more white bunnies. And so this is what natural selection actually is. Notice the pencil here. So now I'm going to ask you to toggle, if you have your digital notebook, we're going to want to add this to the final section in your notebook. Kind of crazy that we're in that final section already. And the final section of your notebook is called natural selection. Okay. If you're taking notes on a pen and paper, then you don't need to toggle. If I were a student right now, I would probably just take notes on a pen and paper. I don't like toggling back and forth. Okay. So natural selection, this is when individuals that are better adapted to their environment. Notice I made adapted bold and big, and because we're going to talk about what that means to be adapted. So when individuals are better adapted to their environment, they're more likely to survive, and then they can pass on that adaptation to their offspring. I think it was Matthew that mentioned, well, the green bugs are going to survive more, and then they're going to have green baby bugs. And since they're green, they're going to survive better, right? So if you pass on that favorable trait, you're more likely to survive that same environment. Now, natural selection is how evolution occurs. Remember, a change in traits from generation over generation is evolution. Whoa, we're refreshing old stuff. We're connecting all the dots. It's amazing, right? And so natural selection is how evolution occurs without needing any outside intervention. It's what's going to happen in nature. It's going to happen in the environment. Whatever's going to happen naturally, that's natural selection. Humans are not dictating it, but the environment is for natural selection. Okay. I'm going to give you a moment to get this in your notes. Let me know, go faster or go slower. All right. So this word adapted, I want to start thinking about what does that word mean? And more specifically, I want to change the tense of the word a little bit, adaptation. Okay. So the white bunnies were better adapted in the snow environment. The brown bunnies were better adapted in the desert environment. The green bugs were better adapted in the green grass. Okay, so on the Pear Deck, what do you think an adaptation is? What does that mean to be adapted or have an adaptation? Again, we talked about the different bunnies and the bugs. Some of them were better adapted. they had a better adaptation than the others. All right, we're back on the Pear Deck. I need 12 of you to join us. Good. So what do you think? What is an adaptation? All right, volunteers. Audie, make sure you join us on the Pear Deck. Let's start with Brianna. What do you think?
To blend into the environment.
Okay. Angelica?
Like an organism's body getting used to like the environment around them so that they can survive.
Okay. Karika?
I think it's when an animal is able to get used to and make use of their surroundings based on their needs.
All right. Faith?
I put adaptation is when you make an action to change into an environment or like to blend into one.
Okay. Thank you. Abigail. Yeah, Abigail.
Adaptation is when an organism changes its way of life to fit the environment around them to survive.
All right. Thank you. I know there's more hands up, but we're going to move on here. So notice the pencil again. Okay, we're going to make sure this is in our notes. So an adaptation, you're right. If I blended what some of you guys said together, it's anything that improves an organism's chances of survival and reproduction. Now, in biological terms, the purpose of life is to survive long enough to create offspring, to reproduce. Now that's the biological goal. That's probably not your personal goal, but it is the goal of all biological life forms is to survive long enough to pass their traits on to the next generation. So an adaptation is anything that can improve those chances of that occurring. So having favorable fur color, having the right color. Maybe you need to be fast or slow or small or big, whatever the trait is that's going to help you survive in your environment long enough to reproduce and create your next generation. Okay, that's an adaptation. Now we also have variation. So variation is when you have differences in those traits. Remember, we looked at sexual reproduction. We have two parents, they each give one allele, and they produce offspring with a variety of traits. So that variation is different traits among the species. So on the Pear Deck, what would have happened if all the bunnies were the same color? In general terms, I think I changed this over here. All right. All right, so you're back on the Pear Deck. Good. I need 8 more of you on the Pear Deck. Good. Rihan, Angelica, and Robert, let's go ahead. What would happen if all the bunnies were the same color? Let me lower your hands. Volunteers. You can give me any example. You could say, well, if the bunnies were all white, or if the bunnies were all brown. I didn't specify you, right? You can determine what you want to talk about. So Armand, what do you think?
I think the kind of bunny that doesn't blend in with its environment would be killed off by predators.
Okay. Abigail?
All the bunnies would reproduce with the same color.
Okay. Right, we wouldn't have that variety. Garika?
If the bunnies were all one color, then depending on the environment and predators that are there, the population will either stay in control or all of them will eventually die.
Okay. I found it amusing when your bunnies took over the world, right? So if it's a favorable trait, we're going to be able to survive. If it's an unfavorable trait, they're all going to die out. So that having that variety, differences in traits will ensure at least a couple of the next generation actually survive. Now, where am I? So this is just a discussion question. What would happen if there were a drought? And more specifically in the simulation, oops, bunnies took over the world. In the simulation, they had you check on limited food, right? So what would happen if there were a drought? Matthew, what do you think?
Some of the bunnies would die off because of lack of resources, and there'll be like a decrease in some of the population.
Okay. Brianna?
All resources need water, so without the resources, bunnies wouldn't be able to live.
Okay. Sahil?
It would be the equivalent of less food because all the plants would die and then some of the bunnies would die.
Yeah, right. So we can have changes in our environment that are going to affect the population as well. What would happen if there were no wolves to eat the bunny? Okay. Now I'm actually jumping ahead. I'm ready to take our second break. So hold on to that thought. Let's take our second break, and when we get back, we will talk about what happens if there's no wolves, right? So get up, stretch, 3 minutes. Saw this in the simulation. The first part of the simulation, you didn't have any wolves, right? So what happened? There were no wolves there to eat the bunnies. And then I also want to challenge you, would this happen in real life? Abigail, what do you think? Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Angelica.
Do I answer the first or second question you asked?
You decide.
Okay, so if this happened in real life, they wouldn't overpopulate because there would be other predators to still eat them.
Okay. Armand?
If this were to happen in real life, the population would grow exponentially, but over time, as the population grows, then the food supply will go down. So then the population will diminish, and then the food supply will go up, the population will go up, and the cycle would repeat.
All right. Anybody else? I'm changing the question for my next class. So I'm changing this question to read, in the simulation, the bunnies eventually, right, took over the world. Would this happen in real life? And as Abigail and Armand mentioned, there's going to be other predators, not just wolves. They're going to run out of resources, food. And so what these guys are going to end up doing, if there's no predator to eat them, they're still going to have to compete with each other. Competition. Now, this isn't just a friendly game of Uno. Oh man, we played Uno this weekend with my in-laws, and it gets fierce. We're yelling at each other, right? And so, but we're not fighting each other for food, right? It's a little bit different. But when it comes to populations and you have to compete, there's no other predators there, but now you're fighting each other for resources. Man, that can get pretty crazy. Thinking about some of the TV shows, right? So even without predators, natural selection still would occur due to those limited resources there. So notice that pencil. And I don't know why I deleted it on this slide. Okay. So maybe it's not a predator that's limiting your population. Maybe it's the resources. And now you have to actually compete with each other for this here. Okay. All right, go faster or go slower? I will make these slides student paced at the end in case you do miss anything and you want to get to it. All right, I have a really short video for you that's going to sum up natural selection in 60 seconds. Okay, so you're gonna probably need to come back to the Zoom thing. Yes, Garika.
Sorry, I raised my hand on accident.
Oh, sorry. Okay, here we go. Oh wait, you know what? It doesn't work like this. Let me do that.
Natural selection in 6.
Just kidding. I'm going to change the sharing. All right, here we go.
60 seconds. I like bunnies. You like bunnies too, right? Who doesn't like bunnies? Well, today we're talking bunnies and natural selection. Let's start by pretending we have two types of bunnies. Brown and gray, and they live in a forest like this. As cute as the gray one is, its fur makes it hard for it to camouflage with its surroundings as well as the brown one can, meaning it's probably more likely to be eaten by predators such as these. Because the gray bunnies will probably be eaten more than the brown bunnies, it means less gray baby bunnies will be born and more brown baby bunnies will be born. The more advantageous trait, brown fur, allows the brown bunnies to survive and have more brown-furred babies, and eventually, brown fur will become more common in the population. This is natural selection.
All right. So the more favorable your traits are, the more likely you're going to survive long enough to produce offspring or babies with those same favorable traits. So let me change this again. Actually, I'll go to the next slide for you. Okay. So it's talking about survival of the fittest. So survival of the fittest. Let's go ahead and go to the question first. I think that'll be better. So which bunny was most fit for, and I changed this question, and why didn't it update? That's annoying. I added in there the snowy environment. And I don't know why my change isn't on the slide, so I apologize. So which bunny was most fit, quote unquote, for its environment? And while you're doing that on the Pear Deck, I'm going to change my sharing with you again. Okay. All right. I need 4 more of you on the Pear Deck. Sahil, Derek, Samuel, and Bailey. Which bunny was most fit for the snowy environment? Again, I'm sorry it doesn't say that on the slide. All right, volunteers. I should probably change this to a multiple choice question. Brianna, which one?
The bunny that was most fit for its environment for the sunny environment was the brown bunnies because there's dirt and they can camouflage into it in a way. And then for the snow, the white bunnies because they blend in with the ice.
Okay, thank you. So we saw that the white bunnies in the snow were better. They could hide a lot better. They survived in the snowy environment. Now just head nod, yes or no. Is that because the white bunnies were buff? Like I'm talking Mr. Lobo buff, like super buff. Is that why the white bunnies survived? They were more fit, they were buffer? Because they can bench press so many pounds? No, right? So when we hear the word fit, we think of somebody who works out and eats well and can run a bunch. And so survival of the fittest is not necessarily the strongest one, but it's the one with the best adaptation or the trait that helps it to survive its environment. Okay, notice the pencil. Make sure we have this here. Okay, yeah. So it's not, the white bunnies are better adapted. So they're more fit. Not Mr. Lobo buff fit, no, but it's the trait they have. Maybe in other organisms, it's because they have flowers on them. Maybe other organisms because they're slimy. Ugh. Or maybe it's because they have like thorns on them. And so it's not necessarily that they're the buffest animal or the strongest animal out there or plant, but that they're the most fit. They have the best adaptation for their environment. Okay. Questions for me? All right, we just have one more Pear Deck question for you to do. So let's pretend your friend was absent from class today. What would you tell them class was about? What if you had to explain to them? What would you tell them? All right, we're back on the Pear Deck. This is our final question of the day. I'm missing 10 of you. There we go. So what would you tell your friend who was absent today? And we actually have a couple folks who are absent. So what would you explain to them about today's lesson? All right, Drew, Randy, Faith, Donovan, Angel. All right, Drew and Donovan, join us on Pear Deck. And then this is it. Good job, you guys. I do want to point out that we introduced quite a bit of vocabulary words. And what we're going to do now for the next few weeks, even when we get back from spring break, is we're going to be using different gizmos, different simulations to practice using these words. Competition, variation, etc. in our lessons. Okay. Any volunteers? Sahil, what would you tell your friend?
We learned about adaptations and how certain traits are advantageous. You shouldn't have missed it. Stay in school.
Armand?
Natural selection is the process by which animals with adaptations more suited to the environment are more likely to survive long enough to pass these traits on.
All right. Garika?
Natural selection is basically nature weeding out the part of the species with traits that aren't fit for surviving in their environment.
All right. I like how you said it's weeding out. organisms that don't have favorable traits. You went the opposite. Good. Anybody else? Now, the only term that I need to still introduce to you, and then you've learned everything you need to know, is artificial selection. So I like how Garika said nature is weeding out the unfavorable traits. Artificial selection, it's not nature, but it's going to be human beings that do that, right? So we're going to see how that applies in our activities later on. So I'm going to change this to be student paced. Okay, so if you're still working on that question, you can. But I do want to point out also that remember this week is going to be different. I'm going to see you guys Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 9:45. Okay, you're not going to see any of your other teachers the rest of this week. You're just going to see them today and tomorrow, and then you're going to check in with me at 9:45 Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Make sure you know how your teachers are going to be releasing your asynchronous work for Thursday and Friday. Again, I'm going to be posting a video about natural selection with questions for you to answer. Okay. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to try to make those questions so that it's no more than a 20-minute assignment. Okay. I'm going to take that back. No more than a 30-minute assignment. Okay. So instead of being in class for 70 minutes, you're going to have a video and questions to answer on your own. Okay. Any questions on how this is going to work? Okay. I also want to remind you that you guys are submitting your digital notebooks on Wednesday. And I will put that link up on Google Classroom right after 5th period for you to post those if you want. If you want to post those today, you can. And then that video and stuff will be released on Thursday. Okay. All right, you guys. It is time. So if you don't have any questions, then I will see you on Wednesday. Bye, you guys. Have a good couple days. Bye. Have a good day. Oh, no, this here.